Welcome to the Urban Balance, and I'm joined today by Dr. Brian Weiss, who is a psychiatrist and works in the area of past life regression therapy. So welcome, Dr. Brian Weiss. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, thank you, Justine.
Thank you. So can you tell me a little bit about what is past life regression therapy?
Right. Past life regression therapy is just looking backwards into what I call past lives. And I started doing this work in the 1980s and discovering people could remember other lifetimes. I know a lot of the world doesn't believe in it, but much of the world does because of Hinduism and Buddhism. But I was approaching it from a clinical perspective. I had patients who were starting to remember past lives, and when they did, their symptoms would often get better. They might have fears or phobias or medical symptoms from past lives, and remembering, and especially traumas. So let's say someone was thrown off a castle wall in the 12th century, and you could say, well, is that a past life or not? But when they remember that, the fear of heights, perhaps, disappears. So that's how I was getting into it as a physician, as a psychiatrist, finding that symptoms got better. So that's how I started looking at past lives and trying to heal people, to help people from that clinical approach.
Yeah, how did you stumble across past life therapy in itself? I mean, I know that you were seeing patients one-on-one. What was the journey to get there?
Well, for me, I was coming from a very skeptical background. I did not believe in it. I was not trained in this. They don't teach this in medical school.
Yep.
And so I had a patient. I was using hypnosis, and that's merely a form of focusing the concentration.
Yep.
Everyone is hypnotized every day. It's not like Svengali or what you see in movies, but it's just focusing the concentration while you're relaxed. And I was using this to help her recall some childhood memories.
Yep.
And I said to her in one session, go back to the time when your symptoms first began. I thought she would go back to childhood and we'd have something, and that's how psychotherapy works. But she went back nearly 4,000 years into an ancient Near Eastern lifetime. She's a Catholic woman and didn't believe in past lives. I didn't believe in past lives as a secular psychiatrist. And yet here she was, having this ancient lifetime. She drowned in a flood or tidal wave, her baby being torn from her arms by the force of the water. But in the present life, she wasn't married and had no children. So this is very strange. But after that, she had a lifelong fear of gagging or choking. I couldn't even use medicines because she had this fear, since she was a little girl, disappeared when she remembered gagging in the water.
Yep.
And the fear of water, I didn't even know about it, disappeared when she remembered the drowning. So she started getting better. She started to look radiant. Her symptoms, she had phobias and fears and panic attacks and depression, disappeared. In her case, without using any medicines. And I thought, wow, I don't know. I don't really believe in this, but her symptoms are disappearing, so we kept doing it. Then she referred in a friend with symptoms, and we did the same thing, and the friend got better. And then people started remembering things that we could check out were historically accurate, but they had no memory of ever having studied or read about that particular time period or those particular historical facts, and they were correct. And then I had someone speaking a foreign language while they were under hypnosis that they had never learned. And so now I'm thinking, wow, this is really strange, but people are getting better, they're healing, they're supplying me with details and data that what they're remembering was real. And then I started opening my mind to the concept of past lives.
So a lot of people might be a little bit skeptical about past lives and whether or not they exist. Do you have any advice or any words of wisdom that you might want to share with people who might be sitting on the fence?
I would say it's really good to keep an open mind. I tell this to scientists too. If your mind is closed, you really can't learn anything new, and there are all kinds of possibilities that we don't know about. So it's like, you develop the telescope like Galileo did. Now he's observing the moons of Jupiter, orbiting Jupiter, but it was heresy at that time. So sometimes as the tools develop, the knowledge broadens, it widens, it increases. So I would say to people, keep an open mind. The other thing is, you don't have to believe in it for it to work as a therapy. So a lot of people come to me because they're, let's say, paralyzed by a symptom, a fear, a phobia, a physical symptom, neck pain, knee pain, anything. And they're saying basically, look, I don't know if I believe in it or not.
Yep.
I'm a very practical person, blah, blah, blah. But if it helps me, I'm willing to try the technique.
Yep.
And so we try it. And then they do remember, and they come up with details. And their symptoms often get better. Another area is relationships. Because we come around so often with many of the same souls.
Yeah.
But the relationship changes. For example, your grandmother may die, and you're very close to her. And then she comes back as your son or your grandson.
Yeah.
And this is how it works. He's pulled back into the same family. And it helps to explain why certain people fall in love right away. We can call them soulmates. But you don't have to have it in a romantic sense. It can be parent-child, grandparent-grandchild, best friends, soulmates. And it helps to explain why certain people push your buttons more than others because they've been doing it for 6,000 years or whatever. So it's very interesting to look at relationships and understand that from a broader perspective. And then you kind of heal the relationship also.
Yeah, I suppose that would be very healing in terms of grief as well, and understanding that that's not the finality to a relationship. It's going to come full circle again, most likely.
Exactly, that's really important. And you don't have to grieve loved ones dying because you'll meet them again, I find, either on the other side or back here in physical bodies again.
Yeah. If people might be a little bit hesitant to try past life regression therapy, can you just talk people through a little bit about the process of what happens when they come in and see a past life regression therapist? Is it scary? What happens? What's the process and what can they expect?
Sure, if you see a past life regression therapist, it's not really scary. Like any therapist, they're concerned with helping you, healing you, helping you to understand. So oftentimes the technique is to put people, after you talk for a while and they get to know you and take your history and know what your issues are, problems, put people into a very relaxed state. That's safe. You can open your eyes at any time, nobody's controlling you. You're just there with your eyes closed like this. It could be in a chair like this, relaxing all your muscles, breathing deeply, going deeper and deeper relaxed. And then they'll say, like, go into childhood and find a childhood memory. It can be a pleasant one. It's not scary. So then you're thinking, oh, I remember a time in school, I was out on the playground playing football, and I had this really great time, and I caught the ball, I felt so elated, and so there's a happy memory. Then you can go younger to 4 or 2, and then they'll say something like, okay, now just imagine that this door is opening and there's a past life on the other side of the door, or a time machine, or crossing a bridge, just some sense of movement to another time. Yeah. And they'll say, and as I count down from 5 to 1, or whatever technique they're using, look down at your feet and tell me, what do you see? What kind of footwear? Shoes, boots, ancient sandals, animal skin, whatever. And then clothes, paying attention to details, hands perhaps, and looking around, and then it comes. And some people think it's imagination, but sometimes it's much more than that, because there's emotion and other detail, and sometimes, as I said, people speaking other languages that they never, but it's never scary in that sense, because these are just memories.
Have you ever dealt with a lot of people who have a fear that in a past life they might have been a bad person?
Yes.
And they're afraid to go there for that reason and discover what that might have been, and they're afraid of the karma that might underlie it?
Yes, they're very, that's a very common concern. People, I don't want to remember if I was bad. But I tell people, it doesn't create karma to remember. You're already dealing with the karma. But it doesn't create anything, just gives you an understanding, a window to see and understand why these things are happening and how you can help yourself and find more peace and joy and happiness in your life.
I have one final question for you. You have an incredible sense of patience and a great attitude towards time, in terms of there's time for everything, don't worry about time so much. Do you have any words of advice for really busy people who might struggle with the concept of time and feeling like they don't have enough time to get through everything?
I think with busy people, and I've always treated very busy people and professional people and so on, I think it's important to love yourself, to understand why you're here, what's your purpose, but take care of yourself. I see so many busy people that are unhappy or miserable, and they're busy, but there's never time for themselves or the important things in life. It gets at one level to how I look at success and failure. I don't look at success anymore as accumulation of things or money. I look at it as happiness and inner peace. And if you are worrying all the time or impatient, you're going to be unhappy and have no inner peace. And so to me, that's not a success. But just as an aside, I find, and I could be completely wrong about this, that when I go to Australia, we're struck with how the people do take time.
We're pretty laid back a lot of the time, but there
compare,
are us that stress.
Yes, I know. But I'm comparing like with New Yorkers and San Francisco people, and listen to people who are like working all the time. But I always found in Australia, people would take the time. We go off and have lunch, and at the day ended when it ended, and the people would go off and eat and do other things too.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you too.
Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
I wish every one of your followers well and peace and patience.
Thank you.